I don't care if anyone believes this or not. What happened on Christmas Eve, 2019, on Elder Ridge Road in northern Arizona, ruined Christmas for me forever. People think holiday hauntings are fun, like cheesy winter ghost stories. This wasn't fun, and whatever I saw that night was not human, and definitely not Santa Claus. I was 22 at the time. I had driven from Flagstaff to visit my uncle's cabin for a quiet Christmas. No parties, no noise, no city lights, just snow, pine trees, and silence. A winter storm was rolling in, and my uncle warned me, "If the roads get too icy, don't step outside after midnight. People see things they shouldn't on that road." I thought he was joking. Old people talk like that all the time. But he wasn't joking. The first warning. Around 11:40 p.m., the power went out in the cabin. Everything, lights, heater, TV, died instantly. I tried my phone. No service. The storm had fully hit. Heavy snow. Wind howling like something alive. I put on my coat and stepped outside to check the generator. The cold cut through the layers like needles. The trees creaked under the weight of the snow, but something else was wrong. There were footprints in the snow, not boots, bare feet, and not small. Each one looked at least twice the size of my own. They led from the tree line straight toward the cabin. My stomach flipped. The prints weren't filled with snow, meaning they were fresh, minutes old, maybe less. That's when I heard it, a soft, dragging sound behind the cabin, like someone sliding something heavy through the snow, and then a deep, wet exhale. I froze. The sound wasn't human. It rumbled, almost like a growl, but slower, as if something enormous was breathing through a torn throat. I backed up toward the front door and quietly slipped inside. For about an hour, I sat silently in the dark, watching the windows, listening. At 12:46 a.m., I heard scratching, slow, deliberate, scraping around the back door. Not a fingernail scratch, something harder. Bone? Claws? I held my breath as the scratching moved from the back door to the side windows, then to the front. It was circling the cabin. I remembered what my uncle had said. Don't step outside after midnight. Now I understood why. At 1:08 a.m., the power suddenly flickered back on, just for a second, and in that moment, through the front window, I saw it. A tall figure standing near the tree line, completely still, facing the cabin. Its skin was pale gray, like something pulled out of a freezer. Its limbs were too long, wrong, stretched beyond human proportion, with elbows bending slightly backward like an animal about to leap. And its face, God, its face had a beard. Not a white fluffy Santa beard, more like dirty snow matted around the jawline, dripping wet and tangled with what looked like tiny pine needles. Its eyes glowed, faintly, yellow-white, like old lantern light. And it smiled. Not a warm Christmas smile, a pulling, tearing smile that stretched too far across the face, splitting the corners of its mouth toward the cheeks. I stumbled back and knocked over a chair, but when I looked again, it was gone. Not walked away, not ran, just gone. At 1:31 a.m., there was a knock on the door. 3 steady knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, in a low, raspy voice, it spoke through the door. "Let me in. You're cold. I can help." The voice sounded like a man, almost comforting, but buried underneath was something else. A deep animal croak echoing behind each word, like 2 voices speaking at once. I whispered, "Please go away." It answered immediately, "You invited me. I followed your tracks." My heart slammed in my chest. I hadn't invited anyone, and I sure as hell didn't want company. The creature knocked again, this time louder, harder, shaking the frame. Thud, thud. Snow fell from the roof. The window glass trembled. Then it said something that froze me from the inside out. "I've seen you before." I didn't move. I didn't respond. Instead, I crawled into the bathroom, locked the door, and waited with my back pressed against the tub. But the footsteps outside the cabin didn't leave. They grew louder, closer, until they were right outside the bathroom window. I tried to stay calm, tried to breathe slow, but something brushed the frosted bathroom window, and then a face pressed against the glass. That same stretched smile, those glowing yellow eyes, skin cracked from the cold. It looked at me sideways, like an animal checking inside a cage. Its breath fogged the glass. But the worst part, I didn't hear it walk up to the window. No crunching snow, no footsteps. It moved silently, like it was gliding. It whispered, "Let me warm you. It's so cold out here." My blood ran ice cold. I don't know why I did it, panic or instinct, but I screamed, "Leave me alone!" For the first time, the creature reacted. Its face twitched violently. Its jaw snapped open wider than a human mouth could, far too wide, and a horrible animalistic screech tore out of its throat. A sound like a pig being slaughtered, mixed with a man choking. The window cracked, just a thin crack, but enough to send me into full panic. I grabbed my car keys, sprinted through the house, yanked the front door open, and ran through the snow like my life depended on it. Behind me, something huge and fast skittered across the snow, crawling, not running, arms digging into the ground like hooks. I didn't dare look back. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and turned the ignition. It almost didn't start. When the headlights turned on, the creature was standing in front of the car, its smile gone, its eyes dim, just staring at me like I had ruined something it expected to enjoy. Then, slowly, it raised one long arm and pointed at me, like it was choosing me. The car finally roared to life. I hit the gas and sped off the icy road, not caring if I slid. Behind me, the thing didn't chase. It just watched. When I reached my uncle's house in Flagstaff at dawn, He didn't seem surprised. He simply said, "Elder Ridge Road doesn't have deer or wolves. The thing people see in winter, it comes down from the mountains, and it loves lonely houses." He refused to say more. But every Christmas Eve since then, no matter where I am, Arizona, Texas, or visiting family in Ohio, at exactly 1:31 a.m., I hear 3 soft knocks on my door. Knock, 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 and a voice whispering, "Let me in." Jake didn't sleep the night he returned from the cabin. He sat on his couch, lights on, coffee going cold, replaying the footage again and again. The heavy boots, the crunch of snow, and the deep, dragging ho, ho, ho that didn't sound cheerful at all. By sunrise, his hands were trembling. He called the county records office. "Hey, I'm investigating the old Prescott Ridge cabin, the one at Deer Trail Road." There was a pause. Then the woman on the line, "Sir, we don't recommend you go back there." Jake's gut tightened. "Why?" "Because that cabin shouldn't exist. It was condemned in 1980 after an incident." "What incident?" Another pause, a long one. "The Christmas Man case," she said quietly. "And if you've stepped inside that place, you should come to the office now." Jake grabbed his jacket and drove straight to the county building. 1980 to 1997. The woman, Linda, brought out a dusty box marked DTR 43/do not issue copies. Inside were yellowed papers, Polaroids, and sheriff reports. The first record was from December 23rd, 1980. A family of 4, the Carsons, had rented that same cabin for Christmas week. The report said, "Children reported seeing a man outside the window wearing a dirty Santa suit." Jake froze. Dirty Santa suit. Linda continued flipping the files. On Christmas Eve, both kids went missing from their beds. There were no signs of forced entry, only footprints in the snow, huge, heavy boot imprints leading into the pines. The children were never found. The cabin was shut down. Linda showed him another file. In 1991, a group of hunters took shelter in the same abandoned cabin during a blizzard. Their report: they heard jingling bells at 3:14 a.m. One hunter swore he heard something walking across the roof. When they fled in the morning, the oldest hunter was missing. His rifle was found outside in the snow, barrel bent like someone had twisted it with bare hands. "Here's the one that made authorities close the entire ridge," Linda whispered. A couple named Roy and Madison camped near the cabin during a Christmas road trip. They used the cabin porch for shelter when heavy snow hit. Roy reported hearing breathing behind the cabin wall, like someone large was waiting just outside. At 4 a.m., Madison saw a figure, tall, broad, red coat but ripped and stained, white beard matted and yellow, a face pale like frostbitten skin stretched too tightly, and a voice, low, broken, saying, "I bring gifts to those who are alone." She screamed. In the chaos, Roy ran into the trees trying to get a signal. Madison never made it out. Roy's 911 call recording was partially transcribed. "He's dragging her. Oh God, the bells. Stop! Stop!" He's not human. His face is wrong. Search teams found blood streaks, but no body. Local legend, the Christmas Man. Linda leaned forward. People around Prescott say he wasn't a ghost at first, she said. They say he was a drifter in the 1950s. Killed travelers, families, hikers, always near Christmas. Authorities chased him deep into the ridge, and there was a shootout in the snow. No body was recovered. Locals believe the spirit of that violent man comes back every Christmas wearing the suit his victims last saw him in. A Santa suit. A joke turned nightmare. He gives gifts, yes, Linda whispered. But only one kind. He gives the gift of disappearance. Jake left the office shaking. He had filmed something real. He had heard those boots. He had captured the same deep voice. He rushed home, loaded his camera footage, and froze on a frame. Through the snowstorm outside the cabin window, just for a second, a man in a shredded red coat stands at the tree line. Tall, beard filthy, staring directly at the camera lens. And something is swinging from his hand. Not a sack. A boot. A child-sized boot. Jake slammed his laptop shut. He called 911 to report what he saw, but the operator said, "Sir, we already have officers en route." "Why? I didn't call yet." "A neighbor reported a man in a Santa coat walking up your driveway." Jake froze. He heard snow crunch outside his front door. Slow. Heavy. Boots that weren't his. A deep, broken voice vibrated through the wood. "You're alone, so I brought you a gift." The doorknob twisted. The screen cut to black. This happened in December 2016 in a small mountain town outside Flagstaff, Arizona. The kind of place where winter hits early, nights fall fast, and every house smells like pine wood and cold air. My name's Ethan Clark, and back then I lived alone in a rental cabin my aunt left me for the winter. I was 23, working night shifts at a roadside diner off Route 180. My sleeping schedule was all over the place. Some nights I crashed at 4 a.m. Some nights I couldn't sleep at all. And that's what started all of this. Because if I hadn't been awake at 3:12 a.m. on December 22nd, I never would have looked out the window or seen him. It started with my dog. I had a German Shepherd named Scout. Big, fearless, loud. That night, he wasn't barking. He was whining. Low throat whining that he only did when he was terrified. I turned on the lamp. "Scout? What's wrong, boy?" He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the front window, hackles raised, tail tucked. That dog faced down coyotes, but whatever he saw outside that window, it had him shaking. I walked over, pulled the curtain just an inch, and my stomach dropped. There was a man standing in the snow, not moving, not breathing steam, just standing. He wore a red coat, but not like Santa. This wasn't some fuzzy holiday jacket. It was an old, long woolen overcoat, faded and sun-bleached, with torn sleeves and something dark crusted around the front buttons. He was maybe 20 feet from my porch, and he was staring directly at my window, like he'd been watching me for a long time. I stepped back quickly. My first thought, drunk hiker? Lost traveler? You see weird stuff in mountain towns. But then he tilted his head, slowly, way too slowly, and Scout let out a broken whimper I'd never heard in his life. I turned off the lamp. Stupid idea, I know, but some instinct told me he shouldn't see where I moved inside the house. I crouched near the window again, slowly lifted the curtain. He was closer, still not moving, still not breathing, just closer. Another 5 feet. I whispered, "What the hell?" That's when he moved his arm. No, he raised it, like someone about to wave. But his hand didn't bend. His fingers didn't spread. The entire arm lifted in one stiff, unnatural angle, as if his bones weren't connected right. I slammed the curtain shut. The footsteps started at 3:27 a.m. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Snow, heavy boots, approaching the front porch. Scout pressed under the table, whining. Then 3 knocks, not normal knocks, slow, spaced, deliberate. Boom, 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 like someone counting between each hit. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I swear the house temperature dropped 10 degrees. Then, from the other side of the door, a voice, a deep, muffled voice. "Ethan, let me in. It's Christmas." My blood turned to ice. I had never told anyone I was staying alone for Christmas. No friends, no coworkers, nobody. How did he know? I backed away slowly. Scout growled now, a low, terrified rumble. The man spoke again, but this time it wasn't from the front door. It was from the window by the kitchen. Same voice, same sentence, but whispered. "Ethan, let me in." I didn't look. I couldn't, because I could feel him staring through the glass. I grabbed my jacket, grabbed Scout's leash, and bolted out the back door into the freezing dark. I ran through knee-deep snow, slipping, choking on cold air, not turning around once. Scout pulled ahead, practically dragging me. We didn't stop until we reached the highway, where the streetlights made everything feel real again. At sunrise, I returned with a neighbor. I didn't want to, but my wallet, keys, everything was still inside the cabin. The snow around my porch was full of footprints, but not human ones, not animal ones. These were long, deep, dragging in a way that didn't match a normal stride. My neighbor walked up to the porch, looked around, and froze. "Ethan, who the hell were you with last night?" "No one," I said. "I told you, I was alone." He pointed at the window. There was something smeared across the glass, something brownish red, written with a fingertip. Not a word, not a message, just a shape, a handprint. Not 5 fingers, 3. That night, the call started. Unknown caller, no ID, just the same message every time. "Let me in. It's Christmas. Let me in. It's Christmas. Let me in. It's Christmas." The voice wasn't quite human. It was too deep, too hollow, too slow, like someone imitating a human voice but not fully understanding how it worked. I blocked the number. Another one called. Blocked it. Another. I turned off my phone. It still rang. My phone was off, but it still vibrated under my pillow. And when I answered it, trembling, all I heard was, "Ethan, you left the door unlocked." But I hadn't. I triple-checked before leaving the cabin that morning. I knew I'd locked every door. Scout jumped off the bed, barking wildly at the hallway. And that's when I heard it. Inside the cabin. A floorboard creaking. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. Coming down the hallway toward my bedroom. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. I didn't breathe. Scout pressed against my leg, growling so low it felt like a vibration against the floor. The house was silent, except for that deep, unnatural breathing from the hallway. Slow, heavy, mechanical, like someone learning how to imitate breath. My doorknob twitched, just a tiny metallic click, then another and another, like something testing each tiny movement, trying to understand how a human door worked. I whispered into Scout's ear, "Don't make a sound, please." Because it hit me. The voice calling my phone, the way it said my name, the way it repeated the same sentences. It wasn't human. It was copying, mimicking, learning. The doorknob rotated halfway, then stopped. Silence. Then a knock. Just one. A slow, dragging, heavy thud directly against my bedroom door. "Ethan." The voice was lower now. Close. Too close. "You left the door unlocked." But I knew I hadn't, and the bedroom door was locked. I double-checked it when I ran inside. The visitor was lying. Or worse, it didn't understand what a locked door meant. The knocking stopped. The breathing stopped. Scout whimpered, ears pinned flat. And then, the thing outside my room did something that froze my spine. It scraped its fingers lightly along the door. Not nails, not wood, but something harder, like bone. Skirk, skirk, skirk. 3 drags, 3 fingers. My chest tightened. My vision swam. Every instinct told me not to make a sound. And then, just as slowly as it arrived, the presence retreated. The footsteps backed down the hallway, not walking, dragging. One long step, pause. Another step, pause, until the sound vanished completely. Scout barked once, sharp and terrified. I waited 30 minutes before cracking the door open. The hallway was empty. The living room was freezing. The front door, wide open. Snow had blown inside, covering half the floor. And in the snow, footprints. Not boot prints. 3-toed impressions, each almost a foot long, sunk deep into the hardwood, as if whatever walked there was heavy. Too heavy for its size. I slammed the door shut, locked it, then shoved a chair beneath the handle. My first thought, call the police. But before I could touch my phone, it buzzed. Unknown number. Again. With shaking hands, I answered. A whisper crawled through the speaker. "Ethan, you shouldn't have looked at me." Then the call ended. At sunrise, I drove to the only place open that early, the tiny general store near the diner where I worked. The owner, an old native elder named Marvin Greyhawk, had lived there for over 70 years. He took one look at my face and said, "You saw him." I froze. Saw who? He didn't blink. "The Christmas visitor." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He locked the front door of the store, flipped the sign to closed, and gestured for me to sit. What he told me still turns my stomach. Back in the winter of 1980, a strong blizzard hit the mountain. A man in a red coat got lost while searching for his missing daughter. They found him days later at an abandoned cabin, but not dead. Not alive either. His body was frozen upright near the door, hand raised as if knocking. But the hand was wrong. The bones had elongated, 3 fingers fused, skin pale gray, eyes wide open. And the worst part? His face was twisted upward, like he was still screaming. Locals said he never left. They said the mountain kept him, used him, turned him into something else. A creature that wandered from cabin to cabin every December, looking for warmth, looking for someone awake, looking for someone who would answer the door. I swallowed hard. "It knew my name." Marvin nodded grimly. "It knows everyone's name." "How?" "Because it doesn't hunt people." He leaned closer. "It hunts loneliness." My blood turned cold. He continued, "People spending Christmas alone hear him first. A voice outside, a knock, sometimes a phone call. If they ignore him, he loses interest. But if they respond, look at him. Open the curtain." He tapped the counter. "Then he follows them." My throat tightened. "Why does he knock so slow?" "To mimic how humans ask for help." He sighed. "Though he hasn't been human for a very long time."